Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three prakim. Rambam, Hilchos, Yibum, Vachalitza, chapters Vav, Zayin, and Ches. We're going to start with the sixth chapter. We're going to learn in this chapter all those who are Ra'ui to Yibum and Chalitza, those that are Ra'u only for Yibum or for Chalitza, and those that are not fit, not for Yibum, nor for Chalitza. The sixth chapter has 31 halachas. Anyone that's using a Rambam that has illustrations or what we call pictures, that could be extremely helpful. On the other hand, I'm sure that there was a time not that long ago where no one had any of such illustrations, and Yigia Batoira, it's just a matter of getting habituated, and a person will be able to grasp many of these halachas fairly quickly after we get into that zone. So let's start. Let's dive right in. Halacha Aleph says that Rambam Yesh Achim, there are certain brothers that the normal din, that either or is relevant to them, which is the norm. However, v'yesh acham, there are other scenarios she'enam ru'uyim, not for yibum nor v'chalitza, meaning ve'ein lohem zika klal, there is absolutely no connection. So it's like any other case. A man passes away, and the widow is free to marry if she wants to whoever she wants. And then you have the in-between cases. V'yesh achim, there are certain scenarios where you have brothers that they have to make chalitza because it's ru'uya la chalitza, but they're not allowed to make yibum. V'yesh achim shehem ru'uyim la yibum ve'enam ru'uyim la chalitza. And by the way that Rambam is organizing this chapter for the man's side, which will be relatively simple. We're going to have the bulk of this pedic will then go on. Same thing with the women, as we'll see soon. But now we're focusing on the men. So the Rambam is going to go through all of these four categories. Halacha beis. Now, the Rambam doesn't have to explain the first category because the first category is a normal din. That if a man, Reuven, marries and he passes away and he has no children, not only no children from that wife, no children, or even if he had children and the children had children and then his children predeceased him and then the man passes away, it's also considered that he has descendants. We're speaking about a man who passed away with no descendants. So the halacha is that the widow is not widow now free to marry whoever she wants. She has a zika connection to the brother or to the brothers. Not that one the more brother can be married, but one of the brothers have to do yibum. And if they don't do yibum, as we learned, is just an act of cohabitation for marriage. They become married. Then with the Rabbanan, prior to the yibum, you do maimar, which is basically giving her kedushin, the way we do kedushin before the nesuyin. Or if they don't want to do yibum, then they have to do chalitza, that special ceremony, parshas kiseitze. So the Rambam doesn't have to describe that first category. That is the normal din. Category number two is that there can be a man who has a brother who passes away, and there's no obligation at all of yibum nor chalitza. What would that be? If the original husband is a siris chama, a man who was never able to have children, he's impotent from birth. Don't forget, the whole purpose of making yibum is that since the brother passed away with no descendants, so for his name to continue, a brother will continue the marriage to that widow. If the original man was a siris chama, not that he was once able to have children, he was never able to have children, so he's excluded from the parsha. Let's just quickly recap that b'chlal, there's a rule that a man is prohibited to marry his brother's wife. It's one of the arayos. So it's amazing. In other words, without the mitzvah of yibum, this is a union that may never happen. So since there's no mitzvah of yibum, nothing is needed. Or an androgynous, even though this is a person, a human being that has both male and female genitalia, they're not able to give birth. And therefore the key is, there was never a time that they were able to give birth. So they are completely excluded. The brothers of such a person is completely excluded. Amazing. There are cases where the brother has the chiyuv or the mitzvah of yibum, but they're unable to do chalitza. That would be a deaf mute, a shaita, or a katan. We're not speaking about the original husband. They were speaking about the living one. Okay. I go back. I think that in halacha beis, the siris chama androgynous is the living brother, not the original. The living brother, the guy that's alive was always impotent. Okay. Or is an androgynous? That's the case. Now, the halacha gimel, the meyabim v'lo yichaltzin is if the living brother is deaf mute or halachically considered mentally incompetent, a minor, they are unable to do chalitza. Chalitza has to be done with kavana. They don't have kavana. Yibum doesn't have to have kavana. That means that if a man accidentally had this act of cohabitation with this woman, then that's a marriage. Another detail. So the cheresh could do yibum. If he does yibum, they can never get divorced. Why? Because the act of cohabitation will biblically seal the knot. It will make them into a married couple. And a deaf mute is unable to give a get. Now it's amazing. When a chedesh tevan gets married, which is a rabbinic marriage, rabbinically he can divorce his wife. But if there is a biblical marriage, biblically he doesn't have the capacity of giving a divorce. So that's, if he does yibum, they're stuck. The minor is ben tesha shana v'yom echad she'ibem. If a 9-year-old does yibum, eino yachal ligaresh, he's unable to give this woman a divorce until he becomes an adult, as we learned in chapter 5, in the previous chapter. Halacha dalet. The final category, the elo cholson b'lemeyabnim, sfeikos, which means there's a suffix whether this union is permitted or not. There's a doubt. If we would know it's prohibited, then there would be no obligation not to do yibum nor to do chalitza. But we don't know. So you have to resolve the doubt, you do chalitza. Suadaka krushavcha. If the living brother has some sort of deformity on his male genitalia, the chayoytze behen mimine haserus, v'hazaken b'yoyset, if the living brother is very old, which means shetashash koichay because he's extremely weak, meaning that currently he's impotent. Now, the imbal sidis adam, if the brother is not a sidis chama, was not born impotent, he's just currently impotent, if he actually managed to have an act of cohabitation, then that will make a yibum. And he has to divorce her. Why does he have to divorce her? Because a Jewish woman is not allowed to be with a man who is unable to father children. Like we keep on mentioning, if a person has a vasectomy, not only is it usher to do it, but his wife has to get a divorce from him. It has to do with having kids, correct. It's mamash asur midoraisa to do, and they're mechuyev to get divorced. If they can reverse it, they claim they can reverse it. Halavai. People have to know that. Because he's asur lovabakol. A tumtum whose genitalia is completely clogged or covered over, he cannot do yibum, but he has to do chalitza because maybe he's a man. If he's a woman, then there's no connection. The im nikra, but if this skin that's covering the genitalia gets torn open, and now we discover for him to be a man, now he's like any other brother. You can do either or. That's a chalitza, that's a miyabim. Now, v'shar kol ha'achim, all the other cases is oy cholzen, oy miyabim. Okay, so that actually, we had just a couple of halachas that went through the 4 groups for the men. And now, like now it's freilach. Now we are halacha hey. And now the same thing goes to the women. Guys, this is really exciting. Really exciting. I remember we learned Yavamas here. We're going back 8 years. We started learning it by slichas. That I remember. It was the night of slichas. It was pre the Fabrengen. And the Ribono Shel Olam, we began with the first Mishnah. It was a whole different type of slichas. Anyways, now it's not slichas, but may God forgive all our sins. What can I tell you? Halacha hey. Let's go. Coffee definitely helps. It's guys. It's not that hard. It's hard if you're not used to the geography. Like you have to have 2 brothers, Yaron, that marry 2 sisters, and then you have co-wives, and you have to hold this all in your head. And then one guy passes away, and another brother marries up to the other co-wife, and there's 18 co-wives, and the whole thing is wow. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's go focus on the woman. That they are fit to either be chalitzad or yibumd. Meaning, and I just laha'ir That the Rambam Seder of Halacha Hey is not the same order of Halacha Aleph. No, by Halacha Aleph, the Rambam went the men that can do both, the men that can do neither, either or. Here, the Rambam is going both, either or neither. Why the Rambam changes it? Everything has a reason. May God enlighten us. Let's first understand Pshat. Let's go with that. Halacha Vav. Let's go. So if the widow is a chareshes, if she's deaf mute, or if she's halachically deemed to be a shoita, or if she's a minor, now why can they not do chalitza? Because the procedure of chalitza demands for the man to read some psukim in the Torah, for her to respond. She's not competent enough to read. It's a technical thing. Not just reading, they have to read, and they have to understand what they're reading. It's not technical. They're unable to go through the chalitza ceremony. Now, the im rotza hayavam legadashes achareshes beget achar sheyivol oisa. So here we go over here. Here's an amazing thing. So this is a woman that you cannot do chalitza with. Well, what happens if they don't want to be married? So ironically, what do? They do yibum. Now they're married, and now we can give her a get. Now understand, guys, just quickly to remind ourselves, biblically, not rabbinically, biblically, a man can divorce his wife without her consent. In other words, a cheresh cannot divorce his wife because he doesn't have a capacity. Since we don't need her consent by a get, I don't care if she's mentally underdeveloped. So what? So that's the way out. The only way is to do yibum and then to give her a get. Okay, halacha zay. If elu choltzos v'lo miyabnois isurei lavim, and we're going to go through many cases. In other words, when the living brother may not marry the widow, b'chlal, no one can marry one's brother's wife. That's an erba. But God made an exception that if the brother who deceased had no children, then the brother or one of the brothers has a mitzvah to marry the widow. But if there's another prohibition, I'll give you an example. That this woman was married and divorced. Then she married a kohen. Now the kohen died without kids. Now a kohen can marry a widow, but she's already a divorcee. So the living brother, forget about the fact that brother's wife is a mitzvah. She's a divorcee. Now a divorcee is not kares, which means if you were to give kedushin, the kedushin is chal. You have to give a get. That's called a isurei lav. Or v'hashniyos. Now, I'm not going to review this, but guys, in Hilchas Ishus, Perek Aleph, we went through all of the shniyos. Or v'surei yasei. Some women, like a kohen gadol, has to marry a virgin. She's prohibited because it's as Kamoy she's but as well. And Rambam is going to give all these examples in Allah. That's where we're going to have some of the pictures. So here it's interesting. So you can't say that they are completely exempt. They're not completely exempt because it's a marriage that could take hold. But you can't do the marriage because God says don't do it. So what do you need to do? You have to do chalitza. V'chol isha, another case, that she's only safek migoydeshes. If Reuven is married to a woman and he divorces her and then he dies, Shimon is not allowed to marry the widow. That's the normal case, that a man is never allowed to marry his brother's wife. But now what happens if Reuven gave her a get and halachically there is a doubt whether the get is valid? So maybe she's a widow and then she fell to yibum or to chalitza. Maybe she's not. So if there's a doubt, to cover the doubt, you don't have the option. You do chalitz because shema yivka be'erva. Meaning, if the get was a get, then she remains the brother's wife. She'eshes achiv she'geresh asur al mishumer. Avol mishum kodeshes lachav kedushin. Let's go to another scenario. Not that there was a suffix get. Reuven gave a woman a kedushin, and for whatever reason, halachically, it's a suffix whether she's mikudeshes or not. And now this Reuven dies. Shimon has to do yibum. He could do yibum. Why? Because mimanavshach. What are you saying? Mimanavshach. If the kedushin was chal, then she's the widow. Yibum. If the kedushin was not chal, then she's not the erva of brother's wife. Then she's not a woman. You couldn't marry a woman. Now you don't have to do yibum, but you have both options. You don't have to. Because she ain't kandover lachush boy mimanavshach. Chein eishes achedish vas kenevo akaram. Harei hein kishar hayivamos rotza choylitz rotza miyabim shezekena va'akaram choysulahem shasa koisher. In other words, as long as there was a time where they could have had children, Now, even though now they can't, the mitzvah still is there. If you want, you can do chalitza, but you don't have to. You can do yibum. Halacha echetz.
Wait, no, with the case of an elderly man, he didn't have a choice because he does not have the ability. I'm sorry, am I confused?
No, you're not confused. So we learned that in the first part of this chapter that if the current man, it was a person that was always impotent, that's where there's no mitzvah. If he's currently impotent, or he's currently very old, but if you can pull off a yibum, then he yeah.
Is the same thing here or not?
Same thing over here. Same thing over here.
Okay.
Following women are completely exempt. Here is what the mistake that I made, guys, in halacha base, which we corrected. That's the case over here. That, guys, the original husband was always impotent. The original husband. She's a wife. The original was a shaita. She was married to a katan. She is an islandess, or a woman who is to the brother an erva, not Eishes Ach, another erva. And all of them are completely excluded from the parsha, because since it says in Kiseitze, "V'lo yimachas shmoi Yisrael," the whole point of Yibam is for the man who passed away, for his name not to be erased from the Jewish people. That comes to exclude us this cham of androgenes. Was if this is the original husband, was always impotent. His name was already erased. These are people that cannot have children. They're like a separate category. And when the Torah says that if this new marriage, this firstborn that's going to be born should be named after the brother, that comes to exclude that. And if the woman is an islandess, means that she was never able to give birth. She was never able. Then when the pasuk says that the wife of the maid should not be permitted to marry whoever she wants, that comes to exclude the wife of a shaita or a katan, because she'ein lohem ishus klal, they were never really married biblically. Well, kacha loyla isha, marry her as a wife. That means that the living brother should be allowed to marry her. Allowed to marry her means, like we mentioned before, if there is an isur, we gave an example of a gerusha l'koyin. It's shaykh to marry her. It's prohibited, but it's chal. Here we're speaking about an edibur. An edibur means that any union, that even if a man were to give the kedusha, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't even need a get. A brother to a sister. Then, ein lo likuch. Ketzah. Now let's go examples. Here we go. Yavama, she erva al Yavama. The Yavama was a erva. Keep going. Let's go. Shahoisa achois ishtoi. The simplest case. The Yavama is a sister to your current wife, or she's the mother of your current wife, or she's the daughter of your current wife. A man is not allowed to marry his wife. Now, by the way, why a wife's sister? There's one case where it's permitted. If the wife passes away. Even if a man divorces his wife, he cannot marry her sister if she's living. But wife's mother, never. Wife's daughter, never. So that was the Yavama. It's a erva. Meaning ve'ein lo yolel zikor klal. Because it says ulokacha loy leisha ve'yibna. It has to be shaykh. It has to be chal. Mishra oila lekucham v'kedusham teivsam ba. Ki shehi zukuka liyava. Gewalt. Now, so just for Kevin made the effort of taking the pictures. So the cases that he's writing, this is Rabbi Steinsaltz, Rabbi Evan Yisrael, Reuven and Shimon, two brothers. Reuven married Milcah, and Shimon married Chagla. Chagla and Milcah, we're talking about the daughters of Tzulaf Chatzam. We know them from the Torah, they were sisters. A simple case. So Reuven passes away. Shimon is already married to Chagla. Milcah is completely excluded from the parsha because Ein Kedushin Toivsa. Now, Hoisa Hayavama Asura Al Yavama only Isur Lav, or not only, God forbid, to minimize it, but it means that Kedushin is Toifus, or Isur Asay, Oi, it's a Shniya, then that's what we learned before. Now, why do they have to do Chalitza? Because she yesh balakuchen. Even though God said not to do it, but if he were to do it, the marriage would have taken hold. Hoil, the Kedushin, Toifsim Bahen, Areihem zukukes liyavam. Gewaldig. Now, now the Rambam is really going to address the kasha. Guys, this was, if you remember, in the beginning of Yavamis, we had a couple of daf of Esadoi Chaloisasa. That's all, that's the issue. Here's the question. Yibum is a positive commandment, Yakir. Positive commandment. If there is a woman that may not consummate the marriage because God says, thou shalt not, like a Gerusha, why don't we say Esadoi Chaloisasa? Why are we saying you have to do chalitza? But it's not, there's a zika, because it's shayach to do kiddush. But you can't do yibum. Why not? Do yibum. It's a mitzvah to do yibum. She's a divorcee, so esadoi chaloisasa. Umin adin hoya sheyisyapmu, because sham yibum mitzvah sasei. And we have a rule, and really, biblically, you should. But why? Because you know what the mitzvah would be, guys? Yaron, the mitzvah would be the first act of cohabitation. That would have to be a mitzvah. And you know what you would have to do then? Biblically, you would have to give her a divorce. Here we are afraid that if a man is going to do yibum, he'll do it again, even if he doesn't like her. You're married. Oh, you see everyone. Because and that yasasura. Because for ancient mitzvah. Because she ain't mitzvah say ella bia rishayna bulvad. Pumba, beautiful. The fikach im avad. Now, therefore, if Taka, in the case that we mentioned, she's an asur b'lav, and obal yivim to asur b'shulav and shumasei. Again, look in the first chapter of Luchas issues. Then hareza konik in yagomor. The yibum is effective, but God says that union may not continue. Okay, umoitzia beget. And not only that, the he v'chol tzaraseh mutaris lazar shadei nifteru. Knows what we're going to learn soon, guys, is that if Reuven wasn't only married to one woman, if Reuven was married to a few women, don't forget, yibum only allows you to do yibum with one of. Chalitza is only necessary with one of. Since this yibum, even though there was the isur lav, was a proper yibum, so that released all the other ones as well. Givaldik. However, but halacha yud aleph, the yivama shehi almana min hanasuyin. Here we go. And what are we talking about right now, Yakir? That the living brother is a kohen gadol. Now, a kohen gadol has to marry a psula, I say, and lav not to marry an almana, which means that for the kohen gadol, even the first act of cohabitation is asur both an asay and a loisase. When do we say that esadoi chaloisase? When do we say that min hadin midoi raisa do the yibum? That's only if it's an asay of yibum and only a lav. But if ubal kohen gadol, here it's not good, and therefore not good meaning loy nifter atzaras, because she'ein asay doichel loisase va asay. And v'hoyel v'lekonim and atoy the king in Gamur. So now, even though he's going to give her a get, which he'll give her a get, the other co-wives are not out; they're still bound. Amazing. Halacha Yud Beis. Hoisa hayavama erval bailam. We're speaking about Yaron. The yavama was an erva on the deceased husband. On the deceased husband, we made the mistake once, and that's it. Hopefully, Kigoin. Guy married his sister. Don't ask how this happens. It happened. And now this man passed away. You understand? There's no issue, B'chal. Why not? Since the original husband's marriage was not teifus, and therefore, this is important. Now, this woman is also a sister to Shimon. But if there was a co-wife, if a man is married to two women, one of them is an erva on the living brother, so then all of them are exempt. Remember that? But since this one was never married, so now the tzara is like the only wife. Then either not like the case that we gave. No, the co, because she's like the only wife. That's a din of evil. Reuven was married to a sister and to Penina. Since the Kedushin was not Chal on the sister of Reuven, so therefore Penina was the only wife, and therefore when Reuven passes away, Shimon has to do with Yibam or Chalitza with Penina. Now, what happens if that wife, the Erva on the original husband, was only Asr on the husband and not Asr to the brother? So you know what he can do? He can marry both, because the other wife was not related to his brother. It's a new marriage. Now there's even more Chalitza. That will be the only scenario where someone can say, wow, Reuven was married to two wives, and Shimon will marry both of those wives, because one of them was never married to Reuven. If the Yavama was asad on the original husband, not Erva, not sister, but Lav, or Yasei, or Shoyse Shniel Baal, and she's Bechlal, not Asur, on the Yavim, Mitzadei Lo Atzudadim. So here we say that not since the marriage was sinful, there's no mitzvah. No. That's the why? Yeah, because the marriage, whenever the Isur is only allowed as Teufel. So Reuven was married to a woman. Now Reuven passed away. Shimon has a mitzvah of Yivam Chalitza, with one exception. Chutz, if the original husband divorced his wife, she married another man, she got widowed from the other man or divorced. Reuven married her back, which is an Isur Lav. Chutz mimachzir gerushasim mishenisei sumeitz, and now Reuven dies. In that case, that will be the only case. And why is that? If you remember, the Chazal say the words that b'mutar la nesra is ba'asar la lekolchchein. Means this woman, b'mutar la nesra, that means she was not allowed to be with her first husband. And meaning, and while that, and while the husband was alive, she's an erva, she's a chois. She's Eishes Ach. That's called Ba'asr. Ilay Kolchchen. Chen, Yuvama, she's Safek Ervan. Ali Yavim, if there's a doubt, either a doubt on the living brother or a doubt on the original one, a doubt. So whenever there's a doubt, the only way to get out of the doubt is Chayletz, is Olay Bishabemes. So he gives an example. Afikach, Misha Kedushishim, Safek Kedushin. Bacharkach Meis Achiv. Shohaya Noisa Achoisa. And v'nafnal yibum, she's fake achois ishtoi, because we don't know what's if his marriage was chagla, milka and chagla. If he's married to chagla, then milka he can do yibum. He can't do yibum with, or she's exempt. But maybe his current marriage is not a marriage. And another thing, not only does he have to do chalitza, but what about to his current wife? So the rule is, guys, that kroivas chalutzasoy you can't be married to. So it's amazing what happened here. So let's go again. You have Reuven and Shimon. Reuven married Milka. The living brother Shimon gave something to Chagla. We don't know whether it was Teufus or not. Maybe the marriage is not a marriage. Now Reuven dies. If Shimon is married to Chagla, then Milka is completely exempt, because she's the sister of the wife. If Shimon might not be married to Chagla, since he might not be married, if he's not married, he has a zika to Milka. He has to give Milka chalitza. He can't do Yibam because maybe sister's wife. So now that Shimon gave to Milka chalitza, so what is Chagla? A relative of a woman to whom he gave chalitza. Now he has to divorce his wife, even though the marriage, we don't even know if they're married, but misafik. Umoitzes ishta beget misafik. And shtei masurim alu. Givim toy. No, he can never be with Milka because maybe she's safik erba. Maybe she's wife's sister. And wife's sister, even though he divorced his current wife, he'll have to do it misafik still. And va'arusasai mipnei she. Why can't he marry properly Chagla? Safik keroivus chalutzasai, which has a status of a shnia, as we learned in Perek Aleph over there. Beautiful. Allah Yudalin. We're just beginning. We're just getting warmed up. Allah Yudalin. Misha Meis Achiv. Viniach Shtei Noshim. Guys, this is a big rule. Okay, man, Reuven passes away, and Reuven was married to two wives, even though the guys now we're not allowed to marry more than one wife at the same time. Then it was permitted. That's the cases we're going to be speaking about. Va'achas asura al yivamam mishum erva. Only one of them is not allowed to be with the living brother. Vashniya eina erva. So you would think, Yakir, well, you can't be with one and you can marry the other. So then do Yibum or Chalitza with the other. We don't say that. This is really the premise, right? Kishem sheha erva petura min Chalitza min Yibum. So automatically, all the other co-wives, kach tzoros, is also petura. Completely. This is based on the pasuk in Parshas Kisei, where it says, Asher lo yivne es beis achiv, which means bayis sheyesh lo lekuchen be'ez mehem sheyirtza. Who sheyesh olav zika, but bayis shemitzasi enechay levnoisai. Even only one of the co-wives, because shenein lo lekuchen, because that one co-wife is an erva, then in a boile he's not allowed to build. Afilu mitzasi shoysemuter. And here's the point. The point is, whenever you're not obligated at all, you're not allowed to. Why not? Because there is an issur of Eishes Achid. If there's no mitzvah, then that erva remains. And him says, Tzara, so erva is erva olav. Why? Because she is Eishes Achid. That has no zika. And therefore, lefika, guys, Kevin, if you can put up the pictures over here. So now we're going to make it freilach. So just to say what's going on over here. Reuven married Penina and Milcah. All right, one wife, the top picture. You see the top picture now. Good. Shimon married Chagla. So far we learned that if Reuven passes away with no kids, absolutely no kids. So since Shimon cannot do Yibum with Milcah, because Milcah is a sister to his wife, therefore there's no obligation to do Chalitza. Therefore, the whole bias has no zika. Shimon is not allowed to do anything with Penina. But now let's throw in a left field ball. What happens if when Reuven passes away? Lefikach, there is a Levi. There is a Levi, and for Levi, Kevin, if you can zoom out and go to the picture all the way in the bottom, not that picture there, the other side. There we go to the left. Now it's amazing. See, what happened over here is that, Reuven passed away. And Shimon, like we said, cannot do anything. Why not? Because Shimon is married to one of Reuven's co-wives, but Levi was allowed to do it. So Lefikach Reuven Shemei, only one is an Ervan Shimon. But in the case where both are allowed to marry Levi, because Levi was married to Miriam. Miriam is not related to Penina, and Miriam is not related to Milcah. So what happens? So ein l'shimon zikal bayizeh. But it's not like since one brother is out, all the brothers are out. Adarabba. Here, only Levi can do it. Hanei shteim tachas zikas Levi. Now, what did Levi choose in our case? Levi chose to do Yibum with one of them. Which one did he do? Not to Shimon's wife's sister. He did it to the Tzaras Erval Shimon. And so now Levi is married to Miriam, and Levi is married to Penina. I'll give you an example. Both of his wives are not related to Shimon. Look how far this goes. And now Levi passed away. So here you would argue, well, Levi passed away. He only had two wives. None of these wives are erva to Shimon. So let Shimon do it. Because one of the co-wives was a tzara of an erva. So now not only can she, let's read it inside. Also, one of them is completely out because she was a tzaras erva while she was married to Reuven. Now, what about Penina and Miriam are not related to Shimon's Chagla's wife? Doesn't matter. Since Penina was a tzaras gavaldik erva, now Miriam is a tzara to her. Wow. And v'chein adin b'tzaras tzaras al tzeifa olam shekol isha she'ein olav zika be'isur eishes ach imedis lo olam. In other words, this Penina remains eishes ach. So she herself was an erva. So Levi was married to two wives. One of them is an erva on Shimon. And that's the whole rule we have in Allah Yudalad, that if any one of the wives is an erva, then not only may you not do Yibum or Chalitza with that wife, you cannot do Yibum or Chalitza with any of the co-wives. Gavaldik, halacha, tezayin, chein, eishes achid. In other case, so the wife of a brother who died when the younger brother was not even born. In other words, when Reuven died, Levi was not born yet. So the thing that Levi cannot marry any of the wives because Levi that Ashes so now Harezu erva olav lo'olam mishum Ashes ach, and therefore baited upaitera sarasa. For example, Reuven shemeis v'niachish. And you know what happened then? Then Reuven had a living brother. Reuven had a brother called Shimon, Nafal Shimon. Now, after Reuven passed away, Noilad Levi. Doesn't make a difference whether Levi was born Koidim, Sheyibin, Shimon, Ashes, Reuven, that makes no difference. Point will be is that Ashes Reuven will always remain an erva on Levi because she is Ashes Ach. Lefikach, if later Shimon passes away, now Yakid, even if Shimon had two wives, beautiful. Because since Leiba Olam, so therefore the wife of Reuven remains Ashes Ach, so that's halacha Yudalit. You know, it's whenever one of the wives, even if only one of the wives is an erva, not only is that erva out of the parsha, she takes out with her all of the other co-wives. Halacha Yudches, another case. Now we spoke out the Kitzur and the Hagdama that even though Midoi Raisa, Yibum means Pasha just to do the act of cohabitation. With the Rabbanon, you can't just do an act of cohabitation. You have to do that which is similar to Kiddushin. It's not called Kiddushin because Kiddushin makes a biblical effect. Here it's called Maimer. Maimer would mean he'll give her a ring, but it's called Maimer. Now we also learned that if one of the brothers gives Maimer, it doesn't resolve biblically the Zika. And if he changes his mind, you have to give a get to take away the Maimer, but then you still have to do Chalitza. Okay. Also, Shema Ma'ivimtoi, she Ashes Reuven. And now Shimon passes away before he consummates the Yibum. Now, guys, don't forget like this. What would happen, Yakir, if Shimon would not do Maimer to Ashes Reuven? Shimon only had one wife prior to that. Now, if Shimon passes away, Levi would be chayiv to do Yibum or Chalitza with Shimon's wife. Why is Levi being exempted? Because Shimon now also married Ashes Reuven. Ashes Reuven remains an erva because Levi wasn't born yet. But here Shimon never really married her. Shimon only married her midrabanan. He only gave her maimer. So now the real wife of Shimon is not excluded anymore. See, it only affects that he is not allowed to do yibam, but he's chayv to do chalitza. She'ein hamaimer koine ba'yivam a kinyan gomor, for you to say that it's tzaras erva. It's not a real tzaras erva. But on the other hand, it's enough tzaras erva for you not allowed to do yibam. Halacha yutes ishas zinos tachas ba'ilo b'ratzon u'be'edim. And therefore, in such a case, the husband would have to divorce her. Umeis kodim she'igar shena, and v'naflu l'fnei yavam. Here also, why? Because just like a erva is excluded, that's only if there were edim, but if she was only a soita, but we don't know that she became tamei. So if we don't know, there's a doubt. What happens when there's a doubt? And furthermore, completely, that's Gavaldi. Wow. Yeah, halacha chav. Shtei yevamois, habois mibayis echad. The first one has to get chalitza, but the other one, the chiddush is. Okay, let's go by there. Halacha chav, yes. Only one of them, or that's the word. That's the Rambam is explaining it. So even though one is asur, but it's not an erva. It's not an erva. Since it's not an erva, the other one, that's it. A guy he gave chalitz. Now listen, guys, halka. V'holcha achois chalutzasoi. Oy ima. After a man does chalitza, a erva of a relative, a sister, a mother, and he marries another brother. Listen, guys, and v'lo yishacheretz, and the other brother has another wife, and he dies. And now v'naflo shteim lefanav. So what did we already have a case, my friends? We already had a case before of kroivas chalutzasoi. So just like kroivas chalutzasoi, asura alav kach tzarasa, that's the rule of halacha yudalit. And now, unlike in the case of the soite hers, unlike the case before in halacha chaf, here it's different. They are both shniyos. If they're both shniyos, choletzes olam yisabes. Umepnei ma osrut sodas keroivas chalutzasoi. Mepnei shemischalefes bitsodas chalutzasoi. In other words, if you want to put up the picture, here's the picture. So here you go. Shimon, you look at the case. Reuven was married to Chana and Yocheved. Guys, help up. Shimon and Reuven passed away. Shimon, my friends, had no wife, doesn't matter. Shimon did chalitza to Yocheved. Why am I saying Yocheved? Because Yocheved has a daughter called Miriam. Now, that was step number one. Goes along Levi, and Levi marries Miriam, who's the daughter of Yocheved. Levi also has a wife called Leah, not related. Now Levi passes away. Miriam is Asura on Shimon because she's Krevas Chalutzasai, right? She is the daughter of Yocheved. And now the Tzara Leah, Asura, because if Leah would be permitted, which really theoretically she should be permitted, like we just said by the Tzara of the Soita, why is this Asur? Because people will think that Tzaras HaChalutza, who's Tzaras HaChalutza? Chana. They will think that if Shimon can marry Leah, Shimon will be allowed to marry Chana. Shimon cannot marry Chana. That's why they made the Gezerah. Gaval. Okay, that was good. The picture really helped over here. That's why this is different than the site. Halacha Chafal. Shtei Yevamois. Habayis and Bayis Echad. Sha'achas mehem erva ala yavam. And v'hadei ha'erva island is. Now we have a whole chiddush. So what did we learn, guys? That an island is completely exempted from the parsha. But you know what that means? It means fakir. That since the islandess is out, the tzara is in. Tzara semuteres, fully in. And you could so it's as if she doesn't exist. And the tzara is not a problem. Reuven was married to two wives. One of them is an erva to Shimon, but he gave her a get. Or there was a marriage because she was married by her elder brother, for which miyun is enough. By koydem sheyamus, and now the brother died. She died. The erva died. So it's now when the Reuven died, he was only married to one wife, and that wife was not a erva. Completely, and we don't say hoil the nasis tzara le'erva shah achaz, therefore te asar le'olam. We don't say that. She'ena tzara asura achet yetzaras erva b'shas nefilas liyibum. Very clear. Allah chav beis hoy so she erva le'yavam kodeshes le'achet shemeis bisafek al kab, or she is migodeshes bisafek. Oy shoyse getana that could have done miyun, but she did not do miyun ba'achet b'chayav. Here we say, because she was completely exempt, there's no zika. She married another man. And then we discover, so guys, Reuven is married to Chana, Reuven is married, let's go to our original names, to Penina and Milka. Yakir. Shimon is married to Chagla. So when Reuven died, Shimon says, I don't have to do anything because my wife Chagla is a sister to Milka. Then we discover that Milka was an islandess. Since Milka is an islandess, so she's completely out, which means Reuven really was only, as far as Shimon is concerned, Reuven was connected to Penina. But Penina already married another man. That's what happened over here. Now what happens? The erva is an island. So, and that, which means that really Shimon should have done Yibum or Chalitza with Penina. Teitze Hatzara mi Baila umi Yevima Nebach. So Penina now has to get a get from that husband, but she can never be from the Yevama. V'tzricha get mi Baila, the Chalitza mi Yevama, Kedei lahatiro l'shul. Now I'll explain you why. Why does, in our case, Penina has to get divorced from her current husband? Because she married him be'isur. Why did she marry him be'isur? Because she married him when she had a zika to Shimon. Why can't she marry Shimon? Because she married another man. Gewaldik. Halacha chav dalet yibem hayavam lutzara. The opposite, an opposite case. So again, Reuven is married to Penina and Milka. Shimon is married to Chagla. Reuven passes away. They paskin, Milka was an islandess. And therefore, even though Milka is a sister to Chagla, but she was an islandess. So they told Shimon, go do, so he did Yibam with Penina. Then they discovered Milka was not an islandess. And then we find out that the Erba was not an islandess. However, they found out. Which means that Penina was completely exempt of Yibam and Chalitza, and which also means that he's living with Eishes Ach. Eishes Ach, Kedushin is not even Toifus. Teitze mi Yavama beget, you need to have a get. Why? Because maybe that goes to these rules that no one should see Eishes is. Eishes is, I think so. But the point is Vavlat Mamzer. Because what creates mamzerus, any union that's also mitzat kodeis, it's nebach, 100%. Guys, there's many nebachs. Halacha chafei. Shloisha achim, this is mamash Gan Eden. Shloisha achim, shnayim mehem nesuyin, shtei achoyois. So let me give you the case. Reuben married Chagla. Shimon married Milka. Levi married Miriam, not related. Now, if Levi passed away first, halkop, my friends. Nochris means a non very good, not a God forbid a goya. Nochris means that Miriam, in our case, is not related to Chagla or to Milka. So guys, halkop. When Levi passes away, so what happens now? So now either Reuven or Shimon, right, are going to have to do either Yibam or Chalitza with Miriam. Now one of the brothers pass away. No one did anything yet. So now my question is like this. Let's say Reuven passed away. What does Shimon have to do with Miriam? Can Shimon marry Miriam? Why would Shimon not be allowed to marry Miriam? Because Miriam, with a zika only, was connected to Reuven also. Reuven's wife is Chagla. Shimon's wife is Milka. Here we go. Why? Okay, if Reuven would have done Yibum with Miriam, Yakir, if Reuven would have done Yibum with Miriam, and now Reuven would have passed away, Shimon does nothing. Because now Miriam is Tzaras Erva. But Reuven didn't do anything yet. But there was a Zika. That's the word. Mepnei Tzaras Achois Ishtoi Bezikas Achiv Shemeis Achrein. V'lo yoid Elo. More than that. Let's say Reuven, who did nothing with Miriam, Reuven divorced Chagla. Still, now Shimon can only do Chalitza with Miriam. He cannot do Yibum with Miriam. Even though only with Sha'achas, not during the passing, they can never do Yibum. Shema yovoyu liyabim oisa afilu loigedish them shemeis achlen esishtoi, and that is not allowed to be done because she's tzaras achois ishtoi bezikas achiv shemeis. These are the words halacha chavav. It's good that we're not rushing. Pnei ma loigozru zebin davar zebin nesuyin. Pnei ma loigozru davar zebin nesuyin. In other words, why don't we say that Soras Erva, after the Erva got divorced? What did we learn before, Yakir? Let's go back to my case, guys. This is the case. Reuven is married to Penina and Milka. Yakir, Halkop. Shimon is married to Chagla. Reuven divorces Milka. when Reuven passes away, he was only married to Penina. So we say Shimon has to do Yibam or Chalitza. Why? Why don't we say that since there was a time that Penina was a co-wife to Milcah, and Milcah is an erva to Shimon, why doesn't there remain forbidden forever? But Penina like Gazru, that was a Benesuyin. Sharei Tzaras ervas Benesuyin, we paskin, we just said that im Geidesh as an erva, and then Vameis, that not only is there a Zika, Shimon can actually do Yibum with Penina. Then the Muteres Layavam, Kamosha Beyanu. What's the difference? Answers that Rambam Mepnei Isur Soras Ha'erva Banasuin is known. And we're never gonna, God forbid, by mistake, say that if Reuven died married to Penina and Milcah, everyone knows that Shimon cannot do even with Penina. Not everyone knows. So since when he died, he was not married to Milcah, Gesundheit. But the Isur Soras Erva Bezika, which is the phenomenal case of Allah Chaf Hey, Eina Yadur Lakoy. And therefore, so it's midrabanan because people don't know this. Then halacha chav zayin. Next case, so 3 brothers are married to 3 sisters. None of the 3 sisters are related. Now listen to what happened, guys. One brother passes away, and one of 3 separate women. Okay, and one. So Reuven passed away. Shimon went ahead. And Shimon did what you're supposed to do midrabanan, which is he gave mimer to the widow of Reuven. But Shimon passed away prior to doing proper yibum. Now let me ask you a question. This woman is falling to Levi. From whom? From 2 brothers. Because Midoy Raisa, she's not connected to the second brother. Mimer doesn't do anything. She's falling from what? Midrabanan, she's falling from the second. Which 2? The original wife of Shimon, the original wife, and now the woman that was married to Reuven and has mimer with Shimon. Why? The woman who got the mimer, she has the zika of 2 Yavanim. She's falling to Levi, both from Reuven and from Shimon, which is not good. The name says, Ki'ilu hi Esha Shnei Mesim. And V'darsh Acham V'amru Eshes HaMeis. V'lo Esha Shnei Mesim. Now, what's the beauty? Let's go back to Halacha Yudalet. Since one of the wives, the widow of Reuven, is not allowed to do Yibum with Levi, the co-wife, which is Shimon's co-wife, also, you have to do Chalitza, but you can't do Yibum. Lefikach Kol Isha. Sha'alel Zika Shnei Yevamim. And the chain tzarasa, but it's only us and midrabanan. Gan Eden, halacha koyach, halacha chavches. Why? Do chalitza with this woman. Why you chalitza? Because it's only us and midrabanan. If it's only us and midrabanan, yakir, do chalitza, and maybe now you can even do yibum. No, is because in such a case, gezeda shelo yoimru. No, I'll tell you better. No, I take that back. It's not midrabanan. This woman, Yakir, this woman is exempt, is out. So if she's out, midrabanan give her chalitza, and then marry Shimon's original wife. You have the option of giving chalitza to one and doing even with the other. Normally, that's not allowed. So therefore, they also prohibited her tzara. Now let's go further. 3 brothers married to 3 sisters, guys. Reuven passes away. Comes along Shimon and he gave mimer to who? To Reuven's widow. But prior to Shimon's passing, he gave her a get. What does the get do? It takes away the mimer. It doesn't take away the zika. Now, who is she connected to? Only to Reuven. Now, Levi can do chazra le'ateira. Shamimer shasora rebitloi. Now, rotza lachlitz lo rotza miyabe. New case. Allah lamed. Ben tisha shana v'yem echad. That we learned in the beginning of the chapter, Shabal Yivim Toi, that he can't do Chalitza, a minor, but he can do Yibum. And he passed away when he's still a minor. And this woman again falls to another brother, but the other brother now is an adult. Why? Because Shabias ben Tesha k'maimar min hagadol. It's like a mimer. And now we learned in Halacha Chav Zayin Then him says, Zika Shnei Yavamim, Esha Shnei Mesim. Final halacha Lamed Aleph, Bi Shechetzya Shivcha. The Chetzya Bas Chayden, the woman is half and half. Right, she belonged to two partners. One of them emancipated her, and now she neskacha a little uven. Is that kedushin toifis? That's the whole shivcha charufa. But after she got kedushin from Reuven, one of the owners emancipated her, and now she got kedushin to Shimon. And there's a whole suffix who's married to her. Do we say that when she became emancipated, so the half kedushin of Reuven is toifis and everything? Or it was never Taifas, she's free. So she's either married to Reuven or to Shimon. And now Reuven and Shimon dies. And now Levi is here. Now Mimanav Shach Yakid, she's a brother's wife. She's either Reuven's wife, Shimon's wife. So we don't say she's Esha Shnei Mesim. Here Levi Yibam or Chalitza. Because im Kedushin Reuven, if that will be the din, Kedushin, so then the Kedushin of Shimon is nothing. She's only married to Reuven. Im Kedushin, Shimon Kedushin, and Kedushin of Klum. So she's only married to one of the brothers. So that's a normal case where Yibam or Chalitza. Okay, guys, what we're going to do is tomorrow we're going to learn Shvi and Shemini. But I'm happy we didn't do all three because Yakir, it's mamish